Real quick before I get going, this book right here, there's an audio book. There's a shit ton of them, all lectures. The Secret Brotherhoods. On my YouTube premium subscription, his shit's gone. Yesterday morning I got up and it wasn't on there. And then you even go to search, it's not there on my shit. But yet, if I go to YouTube, it's on there. So, but this book right here, this audio book, there will be 2 more lectures in the audio book. This has 7. 8 and 9 will be on the audio book. 8 and 9 has hidden hints, links. He hints around. And you can pull it up if you can, and it'll show you what time the certain lectures start. But I'm just going to go into lecture 5. Okay, now I want you to pay very hard attention to this. And it says, so our environment over there, we're talking about the other side, is determined by whether or not we absorb spiritual concepts here. Okay, now if you can add materialism as spirit, which would be full-blown demons. Okay, spirit nature is ours. If you can see this world for what it is. It has to be said with much pity that many of those who have resisted or been prevented from absorbing spiritual concepts here during life find themselves wandering about on the earth even when they are dead. For they remain bound up with the earthly sphere. And once the human soul is no longer separated from its surroundings by a body that would prevent it from acting in a destructive way, this human soul becomes a focus of destruction within the earthly sphere. It has to be said that this is quite a normal situation. Under today's conditions, souls who enter the spiritual world after death, having wanted to know absolutely nothing about spiritual concepts and feelings, become focuses of destructions because they are detained in the earthly sphere. Real quick, Google the Las Vegas sphere, and that's a preview of where we're going. And the Zach Brown video he did with demons all over it. Yeah, everything in our subconscious comes out and surrounds us just like that. Only those souls who have already here been filled with a degree of connection with the spiritual world pass through the gate of death in such a way that they are taken up into the spiritual world in the right way and removed from the earthly sphere. They can spin the threads in the right way that link them with those who have remained behind. Threads which are continually spun, which are streaming. That's where your streaming comes from in TV. We must not forget that the spiritual threads linking the dead souls with those of us here who have been connected with them are not sundered by death. They remain and even become much more intimate after death than they were here. What I have been describing must be accepted as a serious and important truth. Once again, the fact that this is how things are at the present time is something known not only to this author, but to others as well. There are some who make use of the truth in a really nasty way. Today, there are those who have been duped into believing that nothing exists except the material life, which is Ahrimanic. But there are also initiates who are materialist and who make sure that brotherhood spread materialistic teachings. Do not believe that these initiates take the ridiculous view that there is no spirit, or that human beings do not have souls that can be independent of the body and live without it. You may be sure that anyone properly initiated into the spiritual world would not subscribe to the absurd notion of believing only in matter. But there are many who are in one way or another interested in spreading materialism and who make all kinds of arrangements to ensure that a great part of humanity believes only in materialism and is entirely under the influence of materialism. There are brotherhoods headed by initiates who are interested in cultivating and spreading materialism. That has to do with radio, AI, newspapers, internet screens, and all that. That's what I'm saying. We're deep, man. It's deeper than anybody can think. These materialists are very well served by all the talk about materialism having already been overcome. Aims can be pursued by opposing words. Indeed, the way of going about things is often quite complicated. So what do these initiates want who know very well that the human soul is a purely spiritual being which is entirely independent of the body, and who nevertheless want to cultivate people's materialistic outlook? Question mark. These initiates want to ensure that as many souls as possible only take in materialistic thoughts here between birth and death. That's the screens and the AI and the Disney and all that. He's talking about what we're in right now. By this means, such souls are prepared in a way that forces them to remain within the earth's sphere. They are held within the sphere of the earth. Then consider that brotherhoods are set up who know all about this. These brotherhoods prepare certain human souls in a way that makes them remain in the material realm after death. If these brotherhoods then also bring it about that these souls come within their sphere of influence after death, which may well lie within their villainous power, then the brotherhood gains a huge amount of power. These materialists are not materialists because they do not believe in the spirit. These materialistic initiates are not so stupid. They know very well what the implications of the spirit are, but they cause the souls to remain within matter even after death in order to make use of them for their own purposes. They create a clientele of dead souls that remain within the sphere of the earth. These dead souls possess forces that can be guided in various ways, which make it possible to gain quite specific powers over those who are not party to such things. This is quite simply something that certain brotherhoods set and train. And this is seen clearly only by those who are not prepared to believe in anything that is obscure or nebulous, and who do not allow themselves to be persuaded either that such brotherhoods do not exist or that what they do is harmless. These things are not at all harmless. They are very harmful, for the intention is to make human beings go further and further into materialism. What these initiates want is for these human beings to believe that although spiritual forces do exist, they are nothing but forces of nature. Let me now characterize the ideal held by such brotherhoods. You will have to make some effort to understand the matter. Think of an innocuous human world which has been led astray a little by prevailing materialistic concepts of today, and which has deviated somewhat from ancient, well-tried religious ideas. Think of an innocuous humanity of this kind. Perhaps it can be depicted in this. There's a little drawing. And it says, here is the realm of the innocuous humanity, which would be the larger circle. Okay, here's the realm of the, as I've said, the humanity is not only not quite clear regarding the spiritual world, it has also been led astray by materialism, as does not quite know how to behave as regards the spiritual world. In particular, this humanity does not quite know what to do about those who have passed through the gate of death. So now let us assume that here is the realm of one of those brotherhoods, small circle, green. This brotherhood is spreading the doctrine of materialism and ensuring that these human beings most probably think it is purely materialistic way. By this means, the brotherhood succeeds in generating souls for itself that remain in the earthly sphere after death. They become the spiritual clientele of this lodge. That'd be the orange. Remember, the lodges is where he talked about M. Blavatsky on how they did rituals and was going to speak to spirits, but they found out that the lodges were fucking prisons for the dead souls. Yeah. It says, in other words, by this means, dead souls have been created who do not go out of the earthly sphere, but remain within the earth. By making the right arrangements, they can be held within the lodge. So in this way, lodges have been created which contain the living, but also the dead who have become related to the earthly forces. Matters are then directed by these people who hold sessions or by means of arranging meetings like the spiritualist seances of the second half of the 19th century, about which I have frequently spoken. It can then happen, and please take note of this, that what goes on here in the sessions is directed by the lodge with the help of the dead. But it is the intention of the masters in those lodges that the people must not know that they are dealing with the dead, or they are meant to believe what they are dealing with are simply higher forces of nature. The intention is to show people that these are higher forces of nature, psychism and so on, merely higher forces of nature. The concept of the soul as such is taken away, and the people are told, just as there is electricity and magnetism, so there are similar higher forces. Those who lead the lodge hide the fact that these things are coming from souls. So those other innocuous souls gradually become dependent, psychologically dependent on the lodge without knowing what they are dependent on or where that which is directing them is coming from. The only defense against these things is knowing about them. If you know about them, then you are protected. If you know about them in that you really regard them as true, that you really believe them to be like this, then you are protected. But you must not be idle about acquiring real knowledge about these things. For the present, however, it can still be said that it is not yet absolutely too late regarding this. These things can only be clarified gradually, and I can only slowly gather together the various elements by which you can be given full clarity. But meanwhile, I have often told you that during the second half of the 19th century, many brotherhoods of the West introduced spiritualism as an experiment. Yada, 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 and they fucked up. The only reason I was wanting to read that is because I want you to know, like, what you absorb. Those are the impulses. Impulses are demons or angels. I'll use those two words. They are. You know, you're going to get an emotion, an impulse from rubbing a rose petal. You're going to get an emotion by doing this right here. This is a demonic impulse, absorbing. And then when we go across, all this comes out. Pretend this is the brain. Everything in here comes out and surrounds this in this sphere. Long story short. And all this, we need to get into the ether, ego, astral, ether, astral, ego, and then the earthly body. Okay, but you have an ether body, and what these fucking demons that are doing that can't incarnate into physical form. The ones that you see sacrificed, they upload a bunch of shit in them, information, black magic. So when that host, that goy goes across, there's an ether body, a shell, so to speak. And then these fucking demons come in, and once the ether body is disregarded, these demons come in and inherit that. Yeah. And they wear disguises, sort of like in Halloween, because it's fucking real. Okay? I'll be back shortly. I love you.